What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Comment Writers. We are a Kamen Rider review podcast. I'm your host, Josh Meek, the Uber Geek, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Toby Tobes. How's it going, Toby?
Josh, fantastic. I learned about spatial reconfiguration this week, and I'm just riding high on science.
What did you reconfigure spatially?
I don't know. It was in the episode. It was the first thing I thought of.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. This weekend, I told you we took a little mini family vacation, like post Thanksgiving, like basically wrapped up Thanksgiving dinner, got up the very next morning and headed out. It was all fun. We had a really good time. But while we were in the hotel, my kid goes to bed very early. So sitting in the hotel Saturday night, not anything to do, like post 8 o'clock, really. Have to sit in the dark because it's one room. My kid's asleep. So I decided to watch the WWE PLE, Toby, which is premium live event. They're not pay-per-views anymore. They're premium live events.
Because you don't pay for them.
Yeah, you don't pay for them. You just you subscribe to Peacock to watch them. And then the peasants like me who don't pay for like expensive Peacock have to watch like a whole bunch more commercials during the show, which I feel like is really funny because during the show they cut away for like the premium subscribers to like give backstory on the match that's about to happen, but then like the plebeians like me just have to go watch commercials. So someone who doesn't keep up with the product because I'm not a big paying subscriber knows nothing going into a match. But then people who are like the super fans who pay the premium price like get all this extra backstory, which is very funny.
That seems weird to cut people out of that much content. Like
I
I understand if they want to put commercials in it. Like obviously if it's a live thing, it doesn't work exactly the same. But the match builds would be the important thing. Of all the things to cut out, like that seems to be like the dumb thing to cut out.
Well, it used to be. So, you know, it's the Peacock model that they always have, like the lower tier that is ad supported and the more expensive tier that's ad free and all that stuff, like whatever. But it's screwed up the whole show because used to be you could like tune into a wrestling pay-per-view even if you haven't watched the week-to-week show, and they'll tell you enough for you to get the gist of like why these people are fighting, and you're good, right? And that was actually a really awesome way to watch wrestling, was like once a month tune into a 3-hour show and that's it, and then forget it exists between those two times.
And just catch the extras.
Yeah, but now they've screwed it all up where they put all the build in the ad part, but also even if they didn't, like they have to fill in like so many commercials to like, I guess, fulfill their Peacock thing, that it feels like there's like a solid 20 minutes between each and every match because they got to put in so many commercials.
I would have given up long before you did.
It's agony. Yeah.
I have a pretty good idea of, I know where the story is going, and I would have given up way before you did.
You have no idea where this story's going to.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. The end of the night, CM Punk returned to WWE. We don't need to get into the big backstory of CM Punk. We've talked about him, I think, a little bit on the show before. He's a huge hypocrite for having returned to WWE, but I also am now enthralled with finding out like what's going to happen, what explosions are going to occur because of this, because that seems like what happens wherever he goes. So I want to like hate watch the show now because I very much dislike him, but I really want to know what happens. So it's like it's actually working, and that sucks for me.
That's how they get you.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
How they get you.
Totally is how they get me. But in all these commercials, so the thing I'm bringing it up for, because I want to talk about one of the commercials that I saw while I was watching the show. I don't get a lot of commercials in my life these days just because like I don't watch live TV. Most of like the services I'm watching are not ad based for the most part. So like commercials in my life are pretty rare. So maybe this is a thing and I don't know about it. But I got served a commercial for Hims twice. And Hims is like, I don't know, some like help for men thing. Like you can get like help with hair loss and help with erectile dysfunction and those sorts of things.
It's right? Like Blue Chew and all the other things.
Yeah, but it's like all wrapped up into one, right? It's like any ailment that a man might have, you can get it from Hims, is what it seems like, which is fine. That's okay as a service.
And so real quick with Hims, it's funny because they started off as they either started off as the dick pills or they started off as guys don't lose your hair products.
Okay, and then
So
they've expanded.
it expanded to all the guy driven products. And then they started a side company or sister company called Hers.
Makes
And it's all the
sense.
same exact stuff for women. But it's actually like a clever branding to grab a Hers before somebody else did and keep it all in the family.
It is smart of them to get it. And like some of those things, like erectile dysfunction obviously is going to be, for people with penises, but a lot of that stuff too is like, it's funny that it's gendered, because one of the things in the commercial was basically like just depression. Like if you if you want to talk to a shrink or something, which is like one of the most ungendered things that you could possibly need. Anyway, this commercial, it aired for me twice. And the first time that I watched it, I was thinking like there's like three scenarios they set up in it, and one of them basically is the hair loss, and one of them is the depression, and one of them is the erectile dysfunction. And each time in each clip from this first time I'm seeing it, I'm watching it and I'm thinking like there was a funnier joke there, but you just said the obvious thing. Like he, for example, there's a vending machine and it said, there was like a post-it on the vending machine and it said broken, or I'm broken or something, or like broken inside. And the guy like leans his head against the vending machine. It's like, it's funny, right? Because he's depressed and the vending machine's broken inside, but he just says out loud, I think I'm depressed. And I was thinking like, would be funnier if he said like me too or something, right? Like if he like if he said something that wasn't just I'm depressed. And then they get to the last scene, and this is the one I really want to focus on, where a guy's standing in front of an elevator. The door's open. There's a lot of people on side. There's people inside the elevator. The one guy in the elevator looks out at the guy outside and he says, "Going up." And the guy looks at them and he just yells, "I have ED." And I'm like, well, I get what you're doing, right? You're making erectile dysfunction and like up and all that. I get the joke. But just yelling, "I have ED" doesn't complete the joke. What are we doing? So I was very confused. Then I see that commercial like 2 hours later again, but this time they actually do the jokes correctly, Toby. It was a completely different taping of that exact same commercial. So the guy actually says "me too" to the vending machine, and the guy in front of the elevator, the doors open, they say "going up," and he says, "Not really anymore." And they actually do the jokes correctly. And I have no I can't figure out a reason why they would film both a good version and a shitty version of the exact same ad and air them both. It makes no sense to me.
I'll tell you right now, because one of them you probably watched before 9 o'clock and one you probably watched after.
Oh, you think, is that it? Like one had to be like less innuendo?
I think one is probably so like I know you're watching on a streaming service, but let's assume it's the TV commercials as well. Which I mean,
I'm
most
sure it
TV
is. Yeah.
things are. Yeah, so there's probably the one that's like the cable friendly 8 o'clock. We're watching kid shows together. Let's not make dick jokes. And there's probably the one that's like the post 9 or 10 o'clock commercial of like only adults should be watching TV right now. We can make the jokes and they'll laugh at it.
Oh, I didn't even consider that. You're totally right. Yeah. One would have been like, yeah, pre 9 o'clock, the earlier matches, and the other one was basically like towards the end of the show. Yeah.
I'm glad I saw this for you.
Oh
that was
my
an easy
god!
one.
This has been racking my brain about like, why would the bad version of this commercial exist? Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm glad we got there.
I'm glad you're here, Toby. But
Josh
it's funny.
Josh is no longer broken inside too.
I spent like an hour punching that commercial up in my head, and then I saw the actual version with the real jokes, and I felt like I was God for a moment. Like I invented a better commercial, and then it appeared in front of me.
We could all be in a simulation, and you could have upgraded the commercial in your brain, and now that's a new commercial.
That's true. Maybe that is what happened. Maybe this is just Ed TV all over again. Who knows? Toby, how was your weekend?
Lots of running around. One of those, not really a weekends, because we do all the family stuff.
Yeah.
So we did all the multiple family Thanksgivings. We chopped down our Christmas tree.
Oh yeah, you're a real tree person.
I'm a real tree person.
It's interesting. You're a not eat animals person, but you are a kill tree person.
Yeah, there's lots of vegetables, or however that joke works. I don't know.
So what's the chopping down tree experience like now for you? I haven't done it for years.
I still like it. it's way more fun than going to what I'll call a tree store, I guess, when they have them like pre-chopped outside, probably for like weeks long, and it's already almost dead. This year we actually got a tree that fit the room because sometimes like my way that I measure the trees is I'll reach my hand into the sky and say, "Yep, I can't touch the ceiling. This tree seems like it'd be in that vicinity. This should work." And then for the width of the tree, I usually open my arms like a hug to measure the room ahead of time.
Yeah, if only
And then
there
I
were
try,
like tape measures that you could bring with you.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
I try to hug the tree and judge it that way. And I say, "Oh, this is good." So the tree we picked, though, the trunk is entirely too fat. So when we got it home, we tried to jam the tree stand, and it barely fits in the tree stand. Like I'm still half worried it's going to tip. It might be a little lopsided now because it doesn't like sit all the way in the stand. It's in the stand, but not all
Okay.
the way in the stand.
Oh yeah, it's kind of precarious in there.
Yeah, and then like the one of the branches that were like blocking it from keeping it in the stand, I cut off because we were trying to get it to fit. But it was actually making up like a good chunk of the bottom fifth of the tree to fill it out.
Yeah.
So now I took a piece of twine and like tied the tree back to itself to try to maintain some semblance of like full Christmas tree. And I'm hoping it will live sitting in the water, but I don't know.
Well, fingers crossed. It only has to make it like a month, so it's fine, right?
But
It'll
no,
make it.
Christmas usually stays up here until I swear in the middle of February. There's
Fair enough.
there's different opinions on that, but I would say at least like 6 weeks. I need 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We generally are fairly quick to take down Christmas stuff, except for the year that we had our kid. She was born in November, so then like we were just zombies for like
Yeah,
three
there's too much
months.
other
And
shit to do.
yeah, I don't think we took down the tree until it was maybe 1st of March. By the time we actually like took down the tree, because it was just so much going on. I can't, I can't I'm not sleeping. I'm not going to use any of my waking hours to take the stupid tree down. Why would I do that? uh, but yeah, I know we get the tree put away. Usually pretty reasonably on time. But we're a fake tree family. We don't do the real tree situation, which is
We have a bunch of those too, so that's fine.
yeah. I mean, like I feel like that's like the standard, right? Like most people are fake tree people. Would you say that that's true?
I guess so. I guess at some point, like you really don't want to deal with most of the bullshit that comes along with the tree. Like
Yeah,
when you put it in the house, a real one, everybody starts dropping needles and makes a mess.
yeah.
Tree removal, since it's not wrapped up into a little package, is 20 times harder because you're trying to just like drag it outside and just breaking branches everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And at least with the pre-lit ones, the fancy ones are like pre-lit and pre-built. So it's really just like fluff it out, stand it up, plug it in, and you're done with like
Yeah.
what's like the hardest part, I guess.
Ours is not pre-lit. Yeah, we didn't go for a pre-lit one when we bought it, but yeah, those seem super easy. Especially the reason we didn't go pre-lit was because we went a ton of lights on them usually, and the pre-lit ones are always like, well, that's a good start, and then we would want more lights on. But yeah, I get the romanticism of the real tree. I get why you would do it. And we had one growing up. Like my family, for a while growing up, would do the real tree thing, and then eventually we transitioned over into the fake tree thing. And yeah, like being a kid who didn't have to really deal with any of it, it was super fun because like, hey, it's a real tree, and had to do the whole go pick one out and stuff. But like the constant vacuuming up the needles and having to water it and all the stuff that goes on, and yet getting it in and out of the house was like truly a nightmare that my parents had to deal with for those years.
Well, especially now too, the room that the real tree goes in is also the room that has the fireplace.
Yep.
So the fireplace definitely helps dry the tree out, and it's hard. I'm not good at remembering to do things all the time. So there's definitely times where like I forget to water the tree way more than I should,
Oh
and I
yeah.
feel like I help cause the problem of making it dry and sleepy and sad and everything else.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Well, we got our tree up as well. We finished putting the decorations on tonight, actually, which was always fun. So now
So you're all set. You're all ready.
we're ready for Christmas cheer. You know what else we're ready for, Toby?
Talk about
Some,
Kamen Rider, I
some
think.
emails, actually, but
Oh,
yes.
I was almost there.
We have two emails this week. Both of them coming in from our friend Shade. And Shade first talks about Kamen Rider Legends, which is that like
The weird
miniseries.
show with the precious jewels.
Exactly. We had the second episode of that this week, and it wrapped it up. I guess that was the end of that show. So we'll talk maybe a little bit more about it here in a minute. But Shade has kind of a summation of it, and it's actually funny. There was some remembering and then leading to research that I did that Shade has also done as well, but did like a better job than me. So he we'll get to that part here in a second. But Shade says Legend is just like me for real, for real. He's actually a huge Decade nerd. Decade's actor Masahiro Inoue even reprised his role in Legend's flashback, although just as a small voice cameo. I believe he says in the show, "Are you okay, kid?" No, that's pretty much what he does. Shade says what's even more interesting is that Decade was wearing the old white version of his belt, his driver, instead of the new magenta version, like in Geo. So that means the flashback took place before Geo happened. So the new Geo rider is weird. So yeah, so the Decade belt, he looks just like he did in actual Kamen Rider Decade, where he has shown up recently. They've switched the belt for some reason to that magenta color, which like matches his suit more, but like doesn't make him look better. I really like the original belt color. So yeah, I don't know if this is like they're trying to put it in place in the timeline, or if they're just like, nah, it looked better this way. but either way, it's back to normal. Then Shade goes on to talk about kind of the bad guy in the show, which is where I also had some notes to talk about. So Shade says, so the new Geo Rider is weird. His name is Kamen Rider Barklix, which is Barlckxs.
That's very Kingdom Heartsy.
Yeah, Shade says it's pronounced Barlax. If you go listen to some of the voice stuff from when he henshins, like I guess they're saying Barlax. It sounds like they're saying Barlux maybe or something. Like I don't know. It's hard to say. So Kamen Rider Barlax was the villain for Kamen Rider Geo's movie. So the movie was called Over Quartzer, and he was kind of the big reveal for the Quartzer organization's boss, which is sort of the organization that's kind of pulling the strings, they tell you, for kind of all of Kamen Rider Geo. And the suit and the name is exactly the same. However, this is a different actor. This is not the person that was in the movie, and seemingly intended to be a different character here. Shade says, I don't know why he would appear again with a different user, but I'm fairly certain that he's an alternate universe Barlax. In fact, hundreds of foot soldiers are just Oma Geo's foot soldiers too, so maybe they're going to tie things in with Geo in the future. Yeah, I think that makes sense with what they're trying to do, because they obviously Decade is a big thing here as an inspiration for Legend, and like, you know, we get the flashback where Legend sees Decade as a kid in this episode. Legend's whole suit is based on Decade, so then the other anniversary series, which is Geo, makes sense to tie in a lot of stuff from that as well. So I think that's probably why we got the kind of redo of the villain. We've also seen this purchase. So there have been multiple people technically that have been Kamen Rider Barlax already, because the movie had the one version, and then the stage show also featured a Kamen Rider Barlax who was supposed to be a different person that was from the original series. So we've already had multiple people portray that particular character. So here's a third, I guess. Shay goes on to say, well, as a Decade fan, this special was really fun. Legend is a fun character, and like Decade, I can see him being in a lot of crossovers in the future. It would be very weird if he does not appear again at all, though. I mean, why go through the hassle of making a whole new character and suit just to never use him again? Well,
I think that'd be hilarious if they did that, just for the record.
Well, excited to see where they're going to take this in the future. I mean, it would be funny because it's like, you know, these two episodes feel like they're just basically an advertisement for this character. Like, introduce him, tell us what he's about a little bit, give us like a smidge of his backstory, and then it's just a to be continued is really what it feels like.
Maybe they work him into Gotchard at some point when they have like the big ranger off, but he can come back and be like, hey buddy, It's not a VR simulation anymore. Now it's real life. Let's go do Kamen Rider things.
That wouldn't shock me, or it wouldn't shock me if he didn't factor heavily into the Gotchard movie, like when that comes up or something, right? Like I think he's gonna be, I think he's gonna be a going concern for sure. But you got to do something enough with him to like keep that actor around, right? Because it's just like, all right, cool. We did 2 episodes of a YouTube show. Now we're gonna need you again in like a year and a half. You're gonna just keep your schedule open for us? Okay, sounds good.
Well, with the way like I call it the Kamen Rider verse, but the way like once you're in a show, you're pretty much locked in forever. Like you're always welcome back, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously it works. Like they hired him once, and now he's
that's
a
true.
character. And whenever they are ready, they say, "Oh, by the way, it's you now. Come on back."
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah. So did you watch the second Legend episode?
I did not.
Okay. It's interesting. I like where they wrap up with kind of that little story. So basically what happens is it's a direct continuation of the first episode. Hodoro is still there, and he's getting all like dressed up, putting rings on because Kaguya is telling him, hey, you got to become more gorgeous. You're gonna have massage. Then 100 shows up, the bad guys. Hodoro wants to go fight them. Kaguya basically says like, the massage comes first. Hodoro gets very mad. But then we find out the reason Kaguya is kind of like this. We get a little flashback basically. When he was a kid, his like grandpa or dad or somebody was basically about to die, trapped up under some rubble. The 100 forces were kind of coming at them. Decade shows up and saves his life. So that's where he got kind of the inspiration, basically, when he saw Decade as a kid. And then you get the little like, I don't know, log line, tagline for him as a character, because he kind of says that the more he shines as Kamen Rider Legend, the more 100 target only him. So because he's such this like larger than life character, so over the top, he becomes the target, and they don't have as many civilian casualties and stuff. So the fact that he makes them wait only further builds up his legend, and that's kind of what he's doing. So he's not being selfish. He's kind of working his magic, essentially, is what they boil it down to.
Well, that's pretty clever. I will respect that stance if that's why.
Yeah,
That's a decent way to do it. That actually seems like a way to switch it up, like the more of a like One Punch Man kind of vibe of like the more that I act like a prick, the more they'll just worry about me and not worry about anybody else.
Yep,
So that
100%.
seems good.
Yeah, I like it, and like it explains his aloofness a little bit. Like I think he would be that way anyway, but like it gives it a heroic reason to exist. And there's a couple lines. So let me just hit you with some of the lines that I loved in this so far. When he shows up to fight, he hands Hodoro back the Gotchard driver. Hodoro's like, "You're returning my driver?" And he's like, "No, I am not. I am simply changing where I store my collection," which is amazing. At one point, the bad guys try to enlist him. They basically say like, "Hey, you have the same power that we do. You can traverse world to world to world. Why don't we join forces? We can leave this world behind. We can create far grander worlds." And Kamen Rider Legend says, listen, he doesn't long for the world longs for him, and the unpolished gemstones that are in this current world, let him shine bright, and worlds should come to him instead of him going to other worlds. just the most like badass statement. So yeah, I certainly super fun. There was some cool transformations from Gotchard. So he actually got to use some more of the Rider Chemi cards. So he combined, he combined double and O's, which was a very cool look. He combined Forze and build, which was okay. But they're all like super gold and include elements from the writers that they're drawing from and stuff. So it was neat to see a couple of those things. But yeah, overall it ends with them being kind of like on friendly terms, but Hodoro of course gets sent back to his own timeline, and ends with Kaguya kind of like looking out the window and being like, "Hodoro, we'll see. Okay." So it seems very, very clear they're setting him up for the two of them to meet again.
Well, especially with like the world jumping vibe and world building vibe, whatever it is. There's definitely enough like there's enough outs at this point to go do whatever else you want to and make up whatever story you want to with it and have it just work.
Yep.
So at
Yeah,
least
you can
it's
kind of
clever.
you can slot him in anywhere. Anything can be happening basically. And yeah, clearly you can like create whatever villains you want because they can all be like alternate reality versions of existing characters or existing heroes, whatever, it doesn't matter. So yeah, he's super flexible, and clearly they've created a character that I think a lot of people are going to be very into. So
Yeah.
they can slot him lots of places for sure. And then Shades sends in another email here. This one is about this week's episode of Gotchard. Shade says, alrighty, another week, another episode of Gotchard. Lots of interesting things happen, but first, let's check in on some news. So the first thing that Shade points out is the trailer for the Geats and Gotchard crossover is here. The trailer actually got subtitles, Toby, and it only lasts. It's about a minute long. So I'll give you the gist.
Just me.
Basically, the characters or some of the characters of Kamen Rider Geats get turned into chemis.
Which I feel like that was our guess or something
We maybe
close
talked
to
about
that.
that at some point, yeah. So that is going to be amazing. We get to see Buffa as a literal bull, which is pretty great. Pretty excited about that.
Which I mean, with that, then we can get that way. We get a cute Ace then in his little fox form, the adorable little picture we saw.
He's human for most of the trailer. I don't know if he gets converted into a fox or not, but it would be cute. Maybe he does actually because no, he's in the. You're right. He's in the poster as the cute little fox, so he must at some point become a fox Kemi. I don't know. But that'll be in theaters, Shade says, on November 22nd, which
So about a week
is
ago.
about a week ago. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see that movie in about 6 months, which I'm excited to see. Shade says a couple popular voice actresses are going to be in the movie. The first is Rie Takahashi. She'll be voicing the level 10 Kemi X-Wizard. This will be the first Kemi with proper speaking lines instead of just Pokemon language. Funny side note. Go ahead.
I was saying, then we look up. That name sounds familiar in the way that like I feel like we figured out. There's a bunch of people that do their whole main job is like Pokemon, Digimon, anime
just
voice.
the noises. Yeah, not really. Yeah, we did look that up one time. It's like a bunch of people who their whole thing is I just make noises and not actually say real words. Yeah.
So that's like a weird. It's like an upgrade, but still on brand or on vibe. We'll call it.
Yeah, for sure. Shade says, funny side note, she also made a post on social media telling her fans to shower. Respect. I can get behind that.
So she must have had a very bad Comic-Con or something with somebody.
The second and quite peculiar one, the popular Japanese Fox VTuber Fubuki will be voicing the Geats Kemi. I guess I could have just kept reading here to find out that yes, there is a Geats Kemi. Not gonna lie, I did not know how insanely popular VTubers are in Japan, but Fukubi is also a Kamen Rider fan, so it's great. She has a chance to join the franchise literally as a fox.
I feel like there's insane amount of VTuber fans everywhere.
Yeah, it's a massive thing. You and I are VTubers for our video version.
I refuse to take that stance on what the hell happens when you make these videos.
You're actually a PNG tuber is the correct term because we are not 3D animated. We're just bouncing images.
Aren't whoever like the main, they're called the VTuber house, but there's like one main company that I feel like owns the big 10, 15, 20 of them.
Yeah.
I always assumed they were all in Japan in the first place.
They have an English branch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to look up the name of it. Is it V Hololive?
Yep, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's another one too that's I think getting big, which is V Shoujo. I think that's the one where Iron Mouse is a part of. Let me confirm that so I'm not sounding like a complete moron. Yes. So Iron Mouse is actually a VTuber that I will watch occasionally. I'm not huge on Twitch streaming, but like I will watch the occasional Iron Mouse video. But she is a part of V Shoujo, which again is like she speaks English. She is an English speaking VTuber.
It's
but
the
then
GoBots to the Transformers.
Yeah, and then the other one, of course, is Hololive, and there was a big thing. It's been years now, but they made a big to do about doing a English speaking branch of Hololive and a whole roster of VTuber talent to go along with it. I don't know. I'm not a VTuber expert, and it really isn't my thing most of the time. But I totally get why you would want to be a VTuber versus showing your own face. Totally get that. And I get why people are into it as well. Like as far as watching it. Like I get the appeal. It's just not like it's not a thing I'm constantly gonna be streaming and watching and into just because I'm not really as much of a stream watcher. You know what I mean? But yes, VTubing is huge, Joey.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I
I'm
never
agreeing with you.
I never would have thought it wouldn't. I mean, I guess that's maybe partially my own weird. I don't know if that's considered a bias or something else. I just assumed it was a Japanese thing, to be honest with you.
You assume it started there, like it would have originated and been huge there.
Or that's where all the main people that were doing it. Like I know the
Yeah.
name Pekora or Procora, and there's like Shark Boy and some other shit.
Yeah.
I always just assumed it wasn't like a USA thing, to be honest.
It feels very much like it would be something that would be huge in Japan. So that doesn't shock me at all. But yeah, I've never heard of Fukubi. Shade says when a new writer comes out, it's a given that someone would try to make an English version of it. So Shade links as a Kemi X Story English version, which I think you and I have actually listened to, which is very good. And then Shade gets into talking about this week's episode. So we'll dive into it here, and then we'll touch on it a bit more. But Shade says in today's episode, we saw the debut of Kamen Rider Dread, a pretty unique rider this time because instead of a character transforming normally, he is mind controlled. And oh boy, does he sure live up to his name. The trope of mind controlled riders hasn't happened much lately, and I did not realize how much I missed it. Dread's suit actor did an amazing job portraying the character too. He's also Legend's suit actor, so he got the spotlight twice this week. One interesting thing to note, this is just Kamen Rider Dread Type 0, which means this is Dread's weakest form. He gets even stronger. Interesting.
Well, it wouldn't be a true Kamen Rider without everybody leveling up their suits.
So true. Shade says, now let's talk about the Dread Driver. That thing is bizarre looking. Bandai gives a little preview of the belt in a video that Shade links. And then Shade says, similar to the Vision Driver, the Dread Driver has an LED screen, although it's a bit smaller. The belt is set to release in March of next year, so like the Vision Driver, it's going to have a lot of functionality, maybe Type 1, 2, or beyond. Also, side note, the handle looks awfully familiar to Xade's Game Driver. Totally, it looks like the Gamer Driver. The way that you have to like slam it open versus slamming it shut, like it pulls a lot of inspiration, I think, from Xade's driver.
But the way they reuse props and stuff, they probably just like reworked
probably
the driver, and it's like, oh look, it's brand new and fancy again. But we had this sitting in the back, so we're good.
Wouldn't shock me. Shade says, and of course the new cards, new replica Kemi cards, just the same thing but evil now. Yeah, we get dark versions of all the existing cards.
That's how you resell the same toys twice.
Totally. Shade says, well, beside the brand new toys, there's one thing I've been really enjoying in Gotchard, and it's the very reasonable amount of riders in the show. Recent Kamen Rider series tend to introduce a second rider very early on, but back in the old days, a secondary rider felt like a debut of a sixth ranger appearing for the first time. We've spent 11 episodes of Gotchard without any new riders, which is record time for the past 6 years. Yeah, crazy, right? Sometimes Kamen Rider can get too caught up with introducing riders left and right, so I'm glad they recognized that problem and calmed down a bit. Introducing the new Kamen Rider as an enemy instead of an ally is a nice change of pace too. Really looking forward to seeing Dread in action. I'll give you that, but Valverad existed, Spanner existed. So like they kind of had, I know he's not a rider technically, but they had two riders really from the beginning.
Costume armor man.
Exactly.
That transforms as a rider.
So they had like the good one, the like kind of neutral one who's kind of mean, and then now they have the evil one. That is still way, way slower of a pace than like Geats, for example, which started the show with literally how many riders? Like we had
like 6, 7, 8, or I guess technically 3. That first episode was 3. Yeah, we saw like the last round of the first game, and then the first round of Kwa's game was at least 7, if not 8. I feel like.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We're watching X-Aid right now too, which gets into the 3 riders like very quickly. So yeah, I mean, like Kamen Rider definitely likes to pile them on pretty quick. Shade says, anyways, a fun fact about Kamen Rider stats, they don't make sense. In today's episode, Hodoro was punched repeatedly by Dread. According to the official Kamen Rider stats wiki, Dread is capable of throwing punches with 14.2 tons of strength, so Hodoro is quite literally built different. Yeah.
I mean, his best friend's in the costume. He was pulling the punches.
He's pulling them. Yeah, that's exactly.
It's an easy fix.
He's like literally crying as it's happening. I think that's a fair headcanon that you can say.
See, all you nerds with your book reading and stuff. This is what happens. You get too obsessed with the books and you forget about common sense and some logic, and then it all goes downhill. It all goes downhill.
Well, Shade, thanks very much for the emails this week. If you want to be like Shade and send us in an email about anything at all, send those over to cast@commonwritersucks.com. Once again, that's cast@commonwritersucks.com. You can find that link down in the description as well. So, Toby, let's you and I jump into Gotchard episode 12 here, because this episode is like 0 to 100 really fast. I feel like where we're kind of having like a happy fun time. Gotchard, like it's lighthearted, it's a school thing. We had a couple like heavy moments here and there with the memory erasing, but this episode just it goes pretty dark, I feel like. So let's see. Last time around, we found out that the spy in the alchemy organization was the investigator Harima. So we kind of pick up right from there. She's using forbidden alchemy, we find out, which is the thing that's turning her arm decaying. Basically, she's going to lose her arm because of her forbidden techniques that she's not supposed to be doing.
That's what happens. There's always a price whenever you use the dark arts.
Exactly. She's followed the way of the Dark Lord, and turns out she's like just a big fan of the Abyssal Sisters. The one assumption is that she was being mind controlled by them. Turns out no, she just likes them. She's pretty into the fact that they're gonna open the forbidden door, and I don't know, have Bryan Danielson fight Okada. I don't know. They're gonna destroy the world, and she's into that. Some of the things I liked about her early on, she steals Hodoro's cards and she threatens to basically turn Hopper 1 into Amalgam, which I thought was pretty crazy. Like that was a pretty tense.
Him specifically was the one that would have bothered me the most if she was like, oh, watch me go evil Hopper. And she seemed powerful enough where I thought it could be a thing. And I was like, oh shit, I don't want to see this. That's sad.
I know. Yeah. When they teased that, I got a little tense. I don't want to see that happen to poor Hopper. I'd be like, what if we turn Pikachu into a monster?
They should have did that too. That would have been a good one.
I mean, I guess Raichu exists, but throughout this little fight with her, Sabi Maru is kind of like standing on the sidelines. He tries to fight back. He uses his alchemy at one point to like break a bench up and throw it at her, but then she flings it back. So there's really not much he can do. The Kemi cards that she stole try to join in the fight and try to fight back because they're all friends now with Hodoro. But of course, there's not much they can do either. And we end up with her doing this like crazy force choke nonsense on Hodoro with her arm stuck through her,
right through the time hole.
Right through the time hole, and then she lifts him up like 20 feet in the air, which is a really cool visual. Like her arms through the hole, pops out right at his neck, and then she just keeps lifting him up and up and up in the air. I thought that was very cool. The other alchemists all try to fight her. They're all picking up rocks and anything they can, tossing them at her. She's blocking it all. And Hodoro, continues to be choked up in the air. And around this time, the Abyssal Sisters show up, and Harima is just starstruck. Like, oh my gosh, they're here.
You guys hired me, but you're here. You look even cooler in person than you did. However you talked to me before.
And very quickly, they just disintegrate her. They tell her that you've fulfilled your role, and she just fades away. They get rid of her.
It's like a good heist movie. You hire a couple randoms to help you break into the bank. And they're like the beginning of The Dark Knight. And they're like, oh, I thought we were only splitting this 3 ways. And there's 4 of them. And the guy goes, yeah, we are. And just shoots him in the head. Same vibe.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely is. Like, thank you for being a useful idiot. Now we're gonna get rid of you. And then very quickly here, after the sisters show up, some fighting ensues, and then Sabi Maru gets mind controlled. Essentially, he gets controlled, taken over, and he is forced to henshin into Kamen Rider Dread. They affix the driver on him. They hand him the card, and he clearly is like fighting it, but they're forcing him to move. And the main Abyssal Sister says, "Now, what was that phrase again?" And he goes, "Henshin," and then he has to do it. He becomes Kamen Rider Dread.
That part was like, in general, that was super cool. Like, obviously he was fighting it. I could have swore there was like a arm break noise at some point when they like bent his arm back to put the driver on him. But I mean, at least in the amount of time I've been watching the show, I've never experienced like, they never seem in pain when they henshin. It's always like a happy, fun, like watch me change thing. And it's just kind of really like, it's jarring when you like see someone like basically crying, like I don't want to say the bad word kind of thing.
Yeah. Totally. His henshin specifically reminded me of something out of Black Sun, where it's like
When the
clearly
arm's actually like literally stabbed out of your body and it hurt to do it.
right, like it's an actual like painful metamorphosis that he goes through, because yeah, he doesn't want to say it. He henshins. Right at the beginning, he like grabs his throat as if like something is coming out that he doesn't want to have come out, and then the rest of the henshin happens from like from behind. We see the view from behind, and like his whole skeleton comes out, his whole spine comes out, and like juts out and then wraps back around him to form the like outer exoskeleton of Dread. Like it rips him apart is what it looks like. It's so intense and crazy, and there's like glass shattering and like visual effects all over the place. It is crazy and gruesome and violent and super dark. And I'll say Dread looks awesome. I think as a suit, I really like again, it's like a skeletal look, kind of. It's all black, but it's almost as if it is a flaming skeleton, sort of in
like,
its design.
Yeah, like his chest, all of his exposed colors are very like, it's like the yellow to red ombre fade looking thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Where like obviously it's not. If they would have went a little fancier, they could have had it made to look like it was like actually on fire. But it's the closest to on fire they could do with like just lights glowing inside the costume. Totally.
And he's got this cool like white scarf on that like sounds dumb when I say it out loud, but looks really cool on the actual suit. Yeah, I think he just looks awesome. I think the driver looks really cool, like with the flashing lights and the way the handle and stuff works. I think that he like, you swipe the cards on the top to scan them, which I think is also very cool, and then you like slot them in the side once you're done scanning. So yeah, the driver has a neat little gimmick to it. But of course, yeah, it's a crazy Kamen Rider because he's being completely controlled. So first target is Mr. Spanner, Valvarad, and he basically kicks Valvarad's ass very quickly, and he does this kind of like
ever
flaming kick to take Valvarad down, which is very cool.
I was hoping he was going to kill him. That would have been the best ending.
Just done. Yeah, I feel like the only thing this episode was missing was someone dying. Like that, if someone had been around that just died, it would have been even more of an emotional impact. It ends on such an emotional spot, where they're saying like, yeah, we could have died today. If they had been like, yeah, Renge died today, that might have been something.
I mean, it's obviously too early. I was a small, tiny part of me was hoping Hodoro was going to die, just to make some sort of like weird, cool ascended version of Hodoro, where he came back as like a literal like Kemi god, and not so much like a human anymore.
Well, not every Kamen Rider you watch can turn into a god.
You never know.
Never know. Dread at one point just forms double guns and just starts shooting for a while, which is very cool. And eventually, throughout all this fight, we start to hear like Sabi Maru's thoughts through Isaac, and
I thought
he's
that was
just
awesome.
yeah, he's just pleading that he doesn't want to fight. Like, I don't want to do it. Please help me. I don't want to fight. But of course, he's like, while this is all happening, he's fighting amazingly because the Dark Rider has the power all of Sabi's knowledge. So he's super knowledgeable about chemis and their interactions. So he's amazing
And
as
has
a
all the
Kamen Rider.
chemis with the dark versions and
Yep. Yeah, he's fully equipped. He's ready to go. So he kicks everyone's ass basically. And they get their asses kicked hard. Like at one
literally all
point,
of them.
yes, every single person just gets completely obliterated. Um, at one point, Gotchard is like about to come back and he's about to like do this big blow on Dread, but then a little window forms in the helmet so that Hodoro can see Sabimaru's face, and he hesitates. And there's like a single tear that rolls down Sabi's face, and Hodoro like stops entirely, and then Sabi just punches him out. Um, and then probably the most brutal part of the scene of the whole episode is the horrible beatdown. So Hodoro dehensions, is on the ground, and Kamen Rider Dread comes over and just punch after punch after punch, just right to the face, just beating Hodoro up. One of the sisters forces Kudo to watch it, and everyone just has to kind of like look on. There's nothing they can do, while Hodoro just gets brutalized. That was pretty intense, I think, for a Kamen Rider.
Yeah, I mean, at least for the more kid driven ones, that seems like a lot.
Yeah.
The one thing in the whole, and I doubt it's tied to anything, but because the tiniest baby metal keeps telling Kudo it's her fault and like giving her nods, and they said like, "Oh, he's doing this because of the mind control," and some of the other things, there's a piece of me inside that feels like Kudo is still involved in this on the bad side more than just the spy traitor lady was.
You think she's like secretly bad?
Or they said something to get to her, like, by the way, your dad's real or alive. We have him kidnapped. You need to help us still.
Oh yeah.
Because there's too many cutaway scenes to her looking both sad and responsible. Like more so than just the comment of like, well, this is all your fault, which we thought was funny last time. I just feel like there's more to that piece of it than they've let on.
I think you're totally right. Yeah, I think that there's something to that. And yeah, I think that, just like you said, if they had like some sort of dad-based blackmail over her, that would make a lot of sense, that they could use her for something or get her to do something. Because yeah, you're right. There are a lot of cutaways to her and forcing her to watch things and forcing her to see things, and her looking guilty about it, and a lot of knowing glances and stuff. So there's something going on there. The brutalness continues. Ringe kind of yells out at one point. Sabimaru hesitates. He kind of like, you can hear him crying through the suit. Hodoro like clings to his leg and is like, "Sabi senpai, like, I swear I'll save you. I'll save you. Let's look for Kimmy's again together." Heart-wrenching.
None of it works.
None of it works. Sabi's about to, deliver the final blow to Hodoro. But basically, right as he's about to, UFO X shows up in a blaze of light. Hodoro gets a sword. He gets the X Gotchcaliber.
The dumbest name ever.
It's a pretty bad
I was
name.
offended.
It is a pretty darn bad name. Initially, it is like pure white, and then when Hodoro realizes what it is and starts using it, it gets some color, turns blue and red. And it kind of turns the battle a little bit enough that they can kind of fight back to gain some ground. Hodoro sets his sight on the little abyssal sister, but then he falls and kind of dehensions, like he's sort of beaten up. But it gives Minato a chance to call for a fallback and save all his people as UFO X disappears.
They do it a lot in all the main shows that I've watched with you, at least. But I still kind of appreciate the vibe of like, you're not ready to use the powerful thing and just exhaust them instantly after like saving your ass with it.
It's a fun little tease of the like, oh yeah, we're gonna get this eventually, but right now you're not powerful enough. It's a very like shonen thing too. Like you look at the like very, shonen animes like your Naruto's or your Dragon Ball, and like, you always give a little tease of where the character's gonna be, but they have to do a lot of training to get to that point. Like that, I don't know. It's probably all wrapped up in the culture. This episode ends with Hodoro being like depressed AF. Like, so one, I think really incredible acting from Hodoro here. He's like torn up about what
Balled up in a
happened.
corner, hiding.
Yeah, like crying, balled up in a corner, saying like, it's all my fault. I've got to save. I gotta save Sabi. Uh, and he so acting is amazing, and also fantastic job on their part on making him actually look like he's beaten up instead of just putting like a tiny little scrape under his eye. Like he's got like a blacked and bloodied and bruised and swollen eye. He looks like he actually got punched by a Kamen Rider multiple times, which they don't do super often. So it's cool to see that he actually looked like he'd really been thrashed up. And of course, Spanner tries to twist the knife, kind of saying like, we all could have died today.
He should have died today. He's always a jerk.
And Hodoro ends by swearing he'll save Sabi Maru. So Hodoro is super depressed and just wants to save his buddy.
He's broken, but still him. Now I know he's gonna go secondary dark Kamen Rider for the season and do some other shit.
I think you mentioned last episode that like it sort of felt like a here's the second part of the show starting, right? Like we're sort of doing a little bit of a reset, and now we're kind of starting up something new. And totally this time it's like, okay, yes, like things are kicking into high gear. you're putting your foot on the gas, and we're going someplace that is very different than kind of the learning about Kemi World that we were doing for the first 10 episods.
Well, I think it was funny because last week, the week before, I pretty much came to my mental settlement of, if it's just a slice of life show, you know what? I'll accept it. It's just a happy little show. And now we get evil right away.
Yeah, I think that this show is going to be, I think this is going to be one of the shows that really turns people around on it if they weren't into the slice of life stuff, which I was enjoying. I think this show is going to get real dark and going to go some real crazy places. It seems, at least. Yeah, I think we're going to see some nut stuff because like I think time and again have really shown that they aren't scared of like leaning into like the really dark shit in this show too. Like the Wrestler G crying thing was like, oh wow, I'm surprised that we went that far. And now this whole episode was like, oh damn, okay, all right, we're doing that, I guess. So yeah, I think that they have a real dark edge to their plans here, which I appreciate.
Yeah, they definitely have. They did the swerve. Now they're ready.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be interested to see what they do with Dread though. Like as Shade pointed out, like if this is Type 0 and we do get further Dread power ups, like is Sabi Maru Dread the whole time? Does he eventually like turn good but keep the Dread power? Does Dread transfer to someone else eventually? Maybe, who knows?
Well, yeah. I mean, now that we know it's the base form, obviously we can't have them try to fix Sabi forever. So it seems like the most logical thing, at least of now, would be like they get the driver off of him to make him like not mind controlled anymore, and then they just give the driver to the next person they want to make super evil.
That's my guess. Is the driver transfers. But yeah, we'll see. Certainly, Kamen Rider Dread is not really a name you would probably have for like a good version of whatever Sabi Maru's Kamen Rider character would be. But yeah, I like it. And I also like the Dread had like a little bit of the Spider-Man thing where he's like, his knowledge was the thing that gave him power. Like, yeah, he's smart. Science. I like that as well. All right. Any other thoughts about episode 12 here, Toby?
No, it was definitely the swerve I did not see coming. I now have to wonder, will it go back to the Slice of Life show again? Or will it just be like the normal full force Kamen Rider show now where there's stakes and it's all more real and we're not just slapsticking around kind of thing.
I don't think it's kind of like it's a thing that open world video games run into. So hear me out, where they oftentimes will have a story that builds in a lot of sense of urgency to it, where it's like, hurry, you have to do the next step in order to save the world. But like as a player, I've got a bunch of side activities and I'm like, well, that sounds great, but I was going to go deliver some pizzas over here first. Then I'll get to the big important thing you're rushing me to go do, right? And it feels very like it doesn't really work. This feels the same way, where it's like, I think as long as Sabi Maru is Dread and Hodoro knows that he's captured, I can't see Hodoro going back to like, I'm just catching chemis, having a good time over here. I feel like it kind of has to be singular focused on saving your friend until that is fixed. But
well, yeah, especially it fixes all the way in the beginning. We said like, oh, they're going through all the chemi cards pretty fast. And now that they went through a bunch and there's 40, 50, 60 unlocked, now we can pump the brakes on that a little bit and just do Kamen Rider drama and then go back to catching chemis again. I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, maybe for sure. Yeah. And you know, we're building up to the full UFO X henshin at some point too. Like we got like a silhouette of the full suit in this episode. So clearly that's going to happen at some point, and maybe that's going to be the big culmination of saving Sabi is the fully accepting of UFO X as your card. But yeah, I can't really imagine how they could do regular fun episodes while they know one of their own is conscripted.
An evil monster.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap us up, I think, for Gotchard episode 12. We're very happy that you all joined us. Thanks very much. Of course, you can find Toby and I on the internet elsewhere when we're not talking about Kamen Rider. So, Toby, where can the people find you?
On Twitter, it's Life of Tobes, and on YouTube, it's Tobes Plays.
And I am at Pretty Dece Josh at most places, Threads and Twitter and Tumblr. And of course, YouTube, it's youtube.com/prettydece, where you can find the video versions of these episodes. Of course, if you want to send us in an email like Shade did this week, send those to cast@kamenridersucks.com. And we have a Patreon we would love for you to check out. We do watch and react series where we watch old Kamen Rider shows, and you get to watch along with us, hear our thoughts real time as we are seeing the shows together. It's kind of like Mystery Science Theater, but for Kamen Rider. Super, super fun to do. If you sign up for just $3 a month, you get access to all of our watch and react series so far. So all of X-Aid that we've done, all of Black Sun. You get access to some Ramblecast podcasts that we do, and you get to join up in our Discord and chat about Kamen Rider throughout the week. It's definitely a great bargain for just $3 a month. So please check that out. It's patreon.com/thecommentwriters, or there is a link in the description. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for us. Great episode this week. Really excited about next week for episode 13. So we will be back for that to talk more. But in the meantime, have a great week, everybody. Peace.